So throughout my life, I had my fair share of relationships, kind of just going through the flow, learning things as they go. And there are always signs that a relationship isn't going to last, whether you like it or not. And basically, this is what this video is going to be about. No, but seriously, I'm at the point in my life right now where I've been in a long term relationship. I actually recently just got engaged to my fiance. So I've learned a thing or two, I've seen a thing or two, and I've experienced a thing or two throughout my life myself. And when I'm talking to my friends about their relationships, there are certain things that I see from my past in their present. And I'm just like, guys, you really should reconsider if this is something that you want to deal with long term. And most of the time, okay, actually, I'm not gonna say most of the time I'm right, but let's just say that I have a good inclination of the status of a relationship, what it's going to be like after I get a certain amount of details. And right here are five telltale signs. Five telltale signs, in my humble opinion, that a relationship is not going to last. Number one, the ick. The ick is basically a term that is used to express disgust. Um, what the ick is in a relationship is this happens to a lot of relationships early on, to be fair. But basically, when you're engaging with somebody and they do something, you see something about them, or you just notice something that just kind of turns you off. Now, now you can still have attraction to that person. You can even still like that person. You can still love this person, but once you get the ick, it's kind of sending a signal through your brain to your brain, telling you this isn't right for me. I don't like it. You might start feeling uneasy in your stomach when you're speaking to them. Um, all sorts of things. So, to further delve into what the ick actually is, I'm going to read you this insert from happyful.com about this man who recently got divorced, talking about his experience with a date. Here's what he said. My experience was with a gorgeous brunette who had a great job, interesting chat, and cool taste in music. Our first date was in a bar where we had a drink to see if we vibe. Sparks were flying. About an hour into the conversation, I started to notice something. She looked familiar. As she took a sip of her gin, I realized she looked exactly like my ex-husband's sister. In that instant, any romantic feelings I had towards this beautiful woman vanished because there was just no way I could be attracted to someone who looks like a person who I, until very recently, considered family. That is a prime definition of what the ick is. It's like when you'll see women on these dating shows online, they're talking about oh, you have the same name that my little brother has, or something like that. Or if you're like, oh, you really remind me of an ex. That's the ick. It could even be something as simple as I don't like the way their hair looks today. Maybe their breath, was pretty rank today, and you really can't look past how someone could let could let themselves get like that. Whatever it is, it's basically when you get visceral feeling in your gut telling you that this is not this isn't for me. This isn't for me. And a lot of the times, once that first wall comes down, you're gonna start noticing other little things that start to give you the ick. And once that starts happening, you're gonna start looking at this person in some level of disgust. And you're just not going to like them romantically. Let me just say that. Dr. Sarah Tooley, a clinical psychologist and founder of True North Psychology, explained the ick. What she said What she said is that it could be about their appearance, such as choosing to wear a tracksuit for dinner or having really long nails. On the other hand, it can be something that crosses the boundary, such as being too touchy feely, asking extremely personal questions too early on. Whatever the ick is, it's something that tends to make you cringe and turn to you off instantly. Okay, that's what the ick is. Okay, and she's explained that it's a real phenomenon that people have been going through for years. When you see people break up with a perfectly good person early on, a lot of the times it's because of the ick. Okay, and the thing about the ick is it's one of the few things on this list that you really can't repair. You really can't repair. you can look past certain things, but if you're genuinely disgusted at the person that you're looking at, like, I mean, genuinely, like, you just, feelings just there, you're not gonna be able to get past that. Um, I've, I've, I've gotten past it, but it's always been something like, but if I stay in a relationship, it's always something that's like in the back of my mind, as superficial as it is. This is probably going to be the most superficial thing on this list as well, so I had to get it out the way. The ick is a relationship killer. Once one of the parties get the ick, that relationship is doomed. Sad to say. All right, so number two, numero dos, constant arguing and bickering in a relationship. That is a pretty telltale sign that something isn't going to last. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. I mean, yeah, nobody likes to argue, but aren't arguments healthy for a relationship? Let me explain. So, having a discussion, having a disagreement is actually very beneficial for the relationship because, first, it kind of lets you reset certain boundaries. Maybe something has changed and you feel the need to reset certain boundaries. You have something that you've been holding in for a while and you need to let your partner know that you have an issue that both of you haven't addressed yet, but that you need to address. There's no problem with that. Even having a disagreement, like a real disagreement, every so often is not it's normal. It's gonna happen. But when you're actually full out arguing with somebody every single day, for instance, God bless their hearts. Me and my girl, we have a set of friends. They've been together almost as long as we have, and we're going on about 6 years. And these two constantly argue. Now, their relationship has not ended. Very surprising. But basically, they constantly argue, and you can see the hate building up time. Oh, you see it over time, time after time after time after each argument. It just grows. And the more you argue with somebody, the more you have disagreements that aren't getting resolved, by the way, that aren't getting resolved, the more you're going to start to dislike this person. You're going to start not caring about their opinion as much. You're going to start disrespecting this person, especially if you feel like they're disrespecting what you believe in. That's why it's not okay to argue. Arguing constantly is never all right. Here's something that might help you if you're in this situation or know someone in this situation. I remember a few years ago, me and my girlfriend were kind of going through a rough patch in our relationship. Well, fiance now, girlfriend at the time. And basically, I found this 3-day principle. I don't know who came up with it first. I don't know who said it first. I just remember I saw it somewhere, but it's always stuck with me. And there's two parts to it. First part is after 3 days, you should be able to come back to somebody with a calmer mind. You should have reflected. You should have cooled off, and you should be able to speak to that person with no issue about your problems, especially if it involves them. If you can't, that means that the problem is bigger than your relationship. And if the problem is bigger than you and another person's connection, then you need to start having a serious discussion, okay? Second part to that, after 3 days, if you're still genuinely mad at somebody, like you're genuinely mad, genuinely upset, that means you don't really love them. Now, of course, that's not fully true. There's a lot of nuance in love. There's reasons why you will be upset. But I think what that has always been trying to say is that if you feel a certain angst in your heart towards somebody who you're supposed to love for more than a short amount, for more than what's considered a short amount of time, then I mean maybe your feelings aren't strong towards that person because you're letting something break you up. You're letting something cloud your judgment. Now, of course, if somebody cheated on you, yes, of course, that's something to be upset at. But we're not talking about cheating. We're talking about just regular arguments. Talking about getting into fights over not taking out the garbage. We're talking about toxic relationships. If you're constantly bickering, constantly belittling each other, that is not healthy. It's not healthy. If okay, I want you to think about it like this. If it's something that you wouldn't do or say about your partner in front of you or their family, it's an issue. It's always been a rule with me. If it's not something you would say or do in front of their family, not including sex, by the way, it's an issue. And this is something that you're going to need to address. Okay, I see I see couples do this all the time. They're arguing, they're bickering, they don't ever find a resolution because what they don't want to do is hear each other's side. What they want is to be heard. But people forget one of the main, well, actually, what the main reason of an argument should be is to get clarity. It shouldn't be to talk to the person's ear off. It shouldn't be to be louder. It shouldn't be to try to get your point across. It's to get clarity and get understanding. There should be no winners in an argument. There should be no losers in an argument. It should be both people understanding why the other person is upset and doing what they can do to fix that. That is a disagreement. That is a conversation. But if you're constantly yelling and screaming at each other, my friend, that relationship is not going to last. And if it does, trust me, it's going to lead into the next part, the next section that's on this list. And that is going to be number 3 on this list, contempt. In my opinion, probably the biggest relationship and marriage killer out of probably anything on this list. Contempt is the feeling that a person or thing is beneath consideration, worthless, or deserving scorn. What that is basically saying in layman's terms is, if you're looking at a person and you're starting to think that you're better than them, now, hey, there's some real egomaniacs out there. You think that you're better than your partner. It's a little narcissistic to me, but hey, go ahead. But what it really is you're starting to not respect your person. You're starting to not respect your partner. A lot of people have contempt towards a job. Here's a good example. Imagine you're doing a job for years, right? You love this job, whatever the career or whatever the field is. All of a sudden, the company does something that you just really, really, really disagree with. As time goes on, they keep doing more things. And you start to say, hey, I'm better than this company. With that being said, you start doing things that you can do in your power course on the job that you wouldn't have done before. You start looking at it a certain way. You start to not have respect for this job. You start to basically treat this job as if it's beneath you. That's what a lot of people do to their partners. Now, like I said in the previous slide, people will do that after arguments. People will do that after disagreements. People will do that for different religious beliefs, which I'm not even going to delve into that, but just kind of a side note, I don't believe if you're of different religion, now if you're willing to convert, sure. But I don't believe if you're of different religion, it's going to work out, personally. But who's to say? To kind of give you a deeper understanding of what contempt actually looks like and what it is, I'm going to take an excerpt from John Gottman of the Gottman Institute, great psychologist, but he's always had this formula of the 4 horsemen of divorce. And he's always said his number 1 marriage killer is contempt. Here's what he has to say. When you communicate with contempt, the results can be cruel. Treating others with disrespect, mocking them with sarcasm, or condescending forms of contempt. So are hostile humor, name-calling, mimicking, the body language such as eye rolling, sneering. Whatever form, contempt is poisonous to a relationship because it conveys disgust and superiority, especially morally, ethically, and characterologically. Okay? Contempt simply says, I am better than you, and you are less than me. Here's also what he says. If Gottman observes one or both partners in a marriage showing contempt towards the other, he considers the most important sign that a marriage is in trouble. And the reason why is because if you are, okay, we've all been kids in school. We've all been kids on the playground. Maybe not everybody has this experience, but I know a lot of people do. Have you ever been like on a playground or with kids in school, and you have somebody that's supposed to be your friend there, and all of a sudden they start making fun of you in front of all the kids or something like that? It's damaging to a relationship. Now. Imagine that, except for the most part it's behind doors, and it's their attitude towards you. Indefinitely. That is what contempt is. It is so destructive. It is so dangerous because it is basically showing your partner that you do not respect them, showing your partner that you think that you're better than them. It's showing your partner that, yeah, I mean, that, in my opinion, one of the main things about a relationship, one of the main things that's going to make a relationship last is the level of mutual respect that you have for each other. With contempt, you don't really have much. And that's going to be a big issue if you plan on keeping this relationship long term. Number four, disalignment of values. Now, a lot of people might be looking at this and thinking, I'm not really that far in my partner yet to where that matters to me. Trust me, if you're not yet, you will. Values are what makes a relationship. Let me explain. How you're going to parent, how you're going to manage money, your religious belief, like what I was saying earlier about religion. Basically, things that you were brought up with or that you just have opinions on, your beliefs that you're just not going to change. And there's no issue with that. Everybody has their set values. Everybody has their moral values, their religious values, their people values. Everybody has something that they believe is the right way to do things. The thing is, when you and your partner are starting to not align, that's when things are going to be an issue. For instance, let's take somebody who is of a Muslim religion, um, and an atheist. Now, first, if you're just casually dating, it's probably not going to be that much of an issue. You're probably going to have disagreements, but when it comes to raising a family, when it comes to having a kid, when it comes to you and your partner meeting each other's family, doing things with your family, if if both people are truly set on what they believe in, I just don't see how that's going to work long term. As a matter of fact, it's not going to work long term. Another thing, how people manage money. If you have somebody who is a big spender, not a good saver, somebody who is a saver, who is more frugal, and they're dealing with a partner, like I just said, who's a big spender. As time goes on, especially if you don't have the funds to do it, as time goes on, that is going to become an issue. Money is the number one reason why people get divorced. And that right there is a disalignment of values, disalignment of how they see, view, and spend money. That is all going to come down crashing on you if you have a disalignment of values. If it doesn't happen now, it's going to happen 4 years into the future. Here's an example. You have a couple early on into the relationship, they briefly talk about kids. They basically say, yeah, they can see themselves having kids in the future. Say it's 3, 4 years down the line, things are getting more serious. They've moved in with each other. Somebody might have even proposed. All of a sudden, they start talking about kids. One partner would love to have kids. They could really see themselves with a little version of them and their favorite person. Another person is saying, the other person is saying, I don't think I want kids anymore. They want to enjoy life with just focusing on just their partner, nobody else. Now, if this relationship continues, one of two things is going to happen. Either one person is going to compromise their happiness. One person is going to compromise their happiness and either have or not have a kid, and they're going to go through their life basically wanting something that they just cannot have, or 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 they're going to break up. And the reason being is because there are just certain things that you just can't really get behind. If something is big for you, something is important to you, important to your life, important to your livelihood, important to your values, you cannot have somebody coming in compromising that. Your values are a part of your identity. They're who you are. They're infallible characteristics of your persona. They're you. Having somebody coming in and trying to change that, especially if you do not consent or you do not condone the change deep inside, I just don't see how that's going to work long term. But this is also why early on in a relationship, you can actually prevent this. First, know yourself. I always say it's best to know yourself, know who you are, know what you really want before you get into a serious relationship. Second thing, talk about these things. Talk about them. Don't let it be a surprise. I've seen so many instances of, for instance, like the whole kid thing, where relationships of people that have been together for years will break up because they ultimately don't want a kid. Somebody ultimately doesn't believe in marriage. I've seen things where two people really into health, really into fitness, get together. All of a sudden, one of the partners starts slipping. Of course, that's all right. But as time goes on, the person just kind of changes. They don't value their health as much as they used to. Other person starts seeing that, and then contempt builds. And if contempt doesn't build, they're trying to change it about that person. The other person's already setting their values. So once you get a misalignment of values, basically the understanding that you're just not the same person, you don't want the same things. That's a relationship is practically bound to fail at that point, in my opinion. Number 5, infidelity. Now, I feel like I shouldn't have to delve into this one too much because at the end of the day, in layman's terms, nobody likes to be cheated on. Everybody knows how much it hurts. Everybody knows the betrayal. Unless you've never had that happen to you, of course, but everybody's heard of some instance of somebody being cheated on. And here's the thing. If you cheat on somebody, you're doing a few things to kill that relationship. First, you're showing one of the highest forms of disrespect you can show to your partner. You're going behind their back and you're sleeping with somebody. Now, for 99% of the population in a relationship, sex is preserved for you and your partner. Whether you're married, whether you're a teenager, whether you're 86 years old, whether this is just your little boo thing. Most people want to be monogamous with one other person. And when one person goes and they break that chain, you are showing complete disrespect to your partner. Because you're basically saying, I don't care about their feelings. I care about mine. I want it. So I'm going to go do it. Another thing that it is showing, you're breaking trust. Trust is one of the hardest things to build, but it is one of the easiest things to break. For some people, in some relationships, it takes years to build trust. Now, imagine the hurt you will experience when somebody breaks that trust for, let's say, 20 minutes worth of pleasure. They break a year's worth of bonding for an hour. That in layman's terms, that shit is heartbreaking, okay? Also, the lying. If you're cheating, if you're in an affair even, you have to keep an entire part of your life separate from the most important person that's supposed to be in your life. You're keeping a huge part of your life separate. And eventually, that's going to create some crazy space. You're gonna start talking to them less. You're gonna start sleeping with them less. Even if they don't ever find out, even if people don't find out, relationships still end with infidelity, because even if the person that's getting cheated on doesn't find out, the partner that they're with that's doing the infidelity, that's having the affair, realizes that basically they fell out of love, and a lot of times that's what it is. And this is why I always say this is my final advice on the video. If you feel as if you're in a relationship that you don't want to be in, speak to your partner, talk to them, and really figure out if this is a relationship that you don't want to be in. If it is, you want to work on it, continue. Have that open communication. But if you're having thoughts about other people, like serious thoughts about other people, you're really starting to consider the bouts of not being in a relationship. Save your partner the time, save your partner the heartbreak. Give them the respect to end the relationship, especially if you're about to cross the line into infidelity. Because when I say that is one of the biggest hurts you can get in a relationship with somebody that you love, them cheating on you. I honestly can't stress it enough how much it actually does to somebody. I know a lot of people who's been cheated on. When I say it really alters your brain's chemistry of how you look at people, how you look at relationships, how you value certain things. You're lying to that person. You're breaking their trust. You're disrespecting them, amongst a lot of other things I didn't even speak about. This is why, to me, infidelity of any range it's a sign a relationship is not going to work out. And the big reason why is because somebody's already fallen out of love. Thank you so much for watching. Me personally, I'm on a quest for knowledge, so I like to read these studies on relationships to see how I can better my relationships, see how I can help my friends out, get better advice to them and whatnot. I'm going to leave all the studies I use for this video in the description down below. If you enjoyed this video, if it helped you out in any kind of way, you're welcome, and thank you so much for watching. If it didn't help you and you're watching this purely for entertainment, hey, I appreciate it too. Thank you so much for that. Other than that, you guys take care, have good relationships, and be safe, all right? Peace.